If you can hear my dog snoring in the background, it is what it is, and I'm sorry about it. I hope it is not distracting, and we can focus on the subject at hand. Hi, hello, how are you? I'm Alex. If you're new here, it's nice to meet you, and if you're coming back, we're best friends now. You know how this goes. Today, I thought I would talk about some books that are perfect to read and discuss in a book club setting. I have a nice pile of 7 different books from 7 different genres for all your literary needs and all your literary styles, because I think it's good to have a wide variety of perspectives and stories to read in a book club, because it facilitates discussion, it facilitates introducing people to new genres or new narration styles or new authors. So let's get started. The first genre I have here is nonfiction, and for nonfiction I thought of this book immediately because it's the first book we read for my diversity in STEM book club, and I think it's a really perfect book club read, and that is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is all about indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teaching of plants. And I think this is a perfect book club read because the way that this book is broken up is into kind of short stories. And I think that there are perfect little breaks to sit down and meet with people and discuss, or even to just read it all in one go and then discuss after the different sections of the book. I think this is an important book to read also because it shows a new perspective that you may not be used to. Robin Wall Kimmerer is such a brilliant biologist and such an incredible poet that this book is really worth your time. And I know so many people who aren't necessarily in the sciences that still loved this book because it is so accessible and there is so much to learn from it, and it is so gorgeously written. I have tabbed so many pages, so many lines, so many chapters that I adore this book. I highly recommend it, especially for a book club. The next genre that I wanted to recommend a book in is contemporary literature, which seems to be the more common genre for most book clubs. This is a really accessible book, really incredibly well written. I read it a couple of years ago, and I cannot stop thinking about it. And that is Travelers by Helen Habilla. This tells the story of a young academic who travels to Berlin with his wife, who just received an art fellowship. And it's all about the African diaspora in Europe and experiences of immigrants, of travelers, of refugees. And it's so incredibly well written. Helen Habilla has such a powerful writing style. The way that the story develops is really interesting too, in the sense that the style changes with the progression of the characters, and we get to see so many different perspectives from this one story. It's like a story within a story within a story within a story, and it's really beautiful. And I think there's a lot of topics to discuss in this book. I think there are lots of incredible characters that would be nice to kind of dissect and learn what other people thought of those characters and what they felt about those experiences. Incredible book. Next up is a book in the horror genre. If you don't like horror, I think you would still like this book. I was really careful to pick a book that I think would be good for people that don't necessarily like super scary things or super gory things, but still would be curious to dip their toes into horror, and that's Bunny by Mona Awad. I received this book from Queen's Books through my book subscription. I told them that I love literary fiction. I told them some of my favorite authors and that I really love the genre of unhinged women. And this was the first book they sent me, and it was so on the nose, and it's incredible. It has elements of magical realism, elements of horror, elements of mystery, and elements of the absurd. And yes, our main character is absolutely an unhinged woman. This tells the story of Samantha, who is a student on scholarship, and she's just trying to figure some stuff out. In her English class, she is with these girls that she calls the bunnies because they all call each other Bunny. And one day they invite her to their smut salon. And I don't want to tell you much else because I don't want to spoil anything. This is one of those books that it's just so great to go into it not knowing anything. All I knew about this book going into it is that people either adored it or absolutely loathed it, but most of all, no one knew what was going on. And I just think that this is a great book to discuss with some friends, discuss with other people that just love books, and it's a really great way to explore new genres, I think. Next, I want to recommend a book in the dystopian fiction genre. This is a literary classic. I think it's considered a modern classic at this point. And I started watching the show after having read the book a year ago, I believe. And it really made me want to reread it. And that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood is a Canadian author, and this tells the story of Offred and her experience in Gilead, which is a not so distant future dystopian United States. And pretty much it tells Offred's story as her experience as a handmaid. And essentially the handmaid's purpose is to breed with important men in Gilead. They are the only fertile women left, or some of the few fertile women left. Anyway, it is pretty messed up. It is very gripping. It is unputdownable. It is a page turner for sure. I think Margaret Atwood is an incredibly talented author, and I think that this book is worth reading. The show is also worth watching. So many trigger warnings though, so please look into those if there are any of you in your book club that are wary to pick this up for whatever reason. However, I think that it's a great book for discussion, and I'm sure you could find very many discussion prompts and questions associated with this book because it has been out for over 40 years now. Next genre, I want to recommend a book that is a classic. I think that there is something to learn from most classics, and my favorite type of classic is children's fiction. So I'm going to recommend one of my favorites, which I've spoken about before, and that is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. I really love this book. It tells the story of Anne with an E, who is an orphan, and this pair of siblings, they go out to adopt a child, but they wanted to adopt a boy so that the boy could help Matthew in the farm. And instead, they receive Anne, who is a strong-willed, very imaginative, very whimsical child. And this is absolutely one of my favorite books. It's very beautifully written, and Anne is so relatable and so funny and so sweet. And I think that this is a fun book to talk about within a book club because there's a lot of discussion points. Again, because this book has been out for a while, I'm sure you could find many book club discussion points and questions for your book club. And I actually read it for the first time when I was in school as a kid for a novel study. So I just think it's a book that you can learn a lot from, especially from the character Anne, who is an amazing character, and she's just such a wonderful spirit. I think everybody could enjoy this book and can take something from this book. The next two books are big boys. One of them is because I have 3 books in one, so don't be intimidated. The book that I want to recommend is only 121 pages from this tome of a book. But the next genre that I want to recommend something from is sci-fi, and I'm going to recommend Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Like I said, this is the whole trilogy. It's the Southern Reach trilogy. Annihilation is like this much of the book. But this book is just so weird and wacky, kind of like Bunny. Again, if you want to get into the genre of horror, this is also a good place to start because it's like sci-fi horror. I think it's also considered cli-fi, which is like climate fiction, because it has that element of what the future will look like with the development of climate change. Anyway, we got aliens, we got weird shit happening in this book, and there's also a movie that came out a couple of years ago. So if you guys are into watching movies after reading your books, it's a good movie to watch, and this is a great book to discuss. I think there are lots of literary elements, lots of thematic elements, and lots of like political discussions that you can get out of this. And it's also just a great sci-fi novel in my opinion. Again, when I read this, I couldn't put it down. A lot of these books are like the kind of book that you can't put down. They're just that good. And last but not least, we really do have a tome, as it is a fantasy novel as well as queer literature. I'm gonna say before I show it to you that you should not be intimidated by the length of this book, because it will honestly go by pretty quickly. And that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a high fantasy novel. It is a thick girl. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's almost like 900 pages, but it will go by quickly, I'm telling you. The first 100 pages are probably the slowest because it's just a lot of world building, a lot of character introduction. But once you get past that, you will not be able to put this book down. I finished it in less than a week. And I'm a slow reader, okay? I promise you that this is a fantastic book. It will go by faster than you think it will. And it's a perfect book to discuss because there are so many different perspectives in the story, so many different parts of the world that Samantha Shannon built, and so many different characters that people can pick out from and talk about. And I'm sure there are many discussion questions and prompts available that are associated with this book because it's very, very, very popular and it's been highly spoken about, and I think it's very well deserved. And I actually found out earlier this year, I'm not sure when it was, that the author is releasing the prequel to this in January. So I'm very excited about it. It can be read as a standalone. Same with all of the other books that I recommended. You can read all of those as standalones. Despite some of them being parts of series, you do not need to read the rest of the series. Some of them are great, some of them I haven't read. So yeah, if your book club really, really liked one of these books and it's part of a series, then why not take a stab at the rest of them? Precarious pile. Anyway, thank you for watching my video. I hope that you got some good recommendations for your book club from this stack over here. If you are curious about more books to discuss in a book club, let me know. Maybe I'll make another video like this or even produce like discussion questions / prompts. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, thank you so much for 300 subscribers. I cannot believe that I reached this point. I am so grateful to all of you. I cannot believe that there's so many of you that enjoy watching my content this much, and I'm just so grateful for you. And I'm so glad that you guys are getting recommendations, that you guys are as excited about books as I am, and I so look forward to making more videos and reading more books. If you like this video, like this video. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe to my channel. And other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.